welcome to the Prince Magnum channel, where hot rodding and romance do coexist. I'm your host, Prince Magnum. Welcome to Do-It-Yourself Budget Hot Rodding, Lady Mavericks Unite. In today's episode of Lady Mavericks Unite, we're going to talk about this stuff right here, motor oil, okay? And more in particular, we're not necessarily changing the oil, we're just checking it, okay? We're just checking the oil. Now, I already hear some of you saying, Prince Magnum, how are you going to eke out a somewhat informative video on just checking your oil? Well, believe it or not, there's more to checking your oil than just pulling a dipstick, okay? What are we talking about? Well, we're going to turn back the clock a little ways, and we're going to actually talk about the contents in here in a little bit more in depth than a lot of you are used to. So, kick back, relax, and let's have some fun. Alright folks, the first stop in our journey in learning about motor oil and checking engine oil begins right here with Project Spirit. Now I know a lot of you out there who are watching this right now would absolutely love if we got to work on Project Spirit. Hold your horses, we're getting to that. Not in this video though. But to understand and checking your motor oil, it begins with, well, the fact that this is motor oil, okay? This is a Valvoline non-detergent SAE 30 or straight weight, okay? 30 weight, okay? Now, to a lot of you, this sounds like Greek, but you have to understand, in the 1970s, we began to, engine tech and motor oil technology started getting different, I guess you could say. So now that I've said that, what does all of that mean that you just said, though? Let's break it down. SAE 30, it's a straight 30 weight oil. Now, despite the fact that Project Spirit was recommended from the factory with a 10W30 motor oil, you could still use SAE 30, okay? And what some of us guys would have done back in the day, because despite the fact that they recommended from the factory a multi-grade oil like 10W30, it didn't really run super well in engines like here in Project Spirit. They ran better with the straight weight that you would have seen in the 1960s, because there was a lot of holdover technology in the 70s from the 60s. So now that you kind of understand that, SAE 30, it's not a multi-grade like we're familiar with today. Now today we might see something like 0W whatever the fuck, okay? But back then, this stuff was thick. As a matter of fact, you would actually keep this, inside where it was warm, because if you left it out here open to the elements in your vehicle where it was cold, it took forever for it to get into your engine. So that's the big thing that you need to understand, okay? That the multi-grade stuff that we're familiar with today is easier to pour. And it kind of starts off as a, really thin, but as it warms up, it thickens and bonds to parts better. In cold weather like we've got right now, it would be interesting trying to start Project Spirit with this inside of her engine. Okay, it's sometimes difficult. The colder it gets, the more difficult it is to start her with straight weight, which is why in the winter months, I'll run SAE 30, and in the summer months, I'll run, something like a 40 or a 50 weight, and she runs just fine, because as the engine gets warmer, you need that thicker oil. Now, I mentioned the detergent in this. Now, this is a non-detergent. Now, just like today, where we still kind of have a small debate, what's better, conventional or synthetic, back then, there was the debate, which was better, non-detergent or detergent oil. Okay. See, again, the argument may have changed, but it's funny how things change, but they still stay the same. Okay. Back in around the 70s, engines, motor oil did not have detergent in it. And what oftentimes happened was, as the engine was running, it would build up with like this foam inside of the engine. Now, they found that they could add a detergent to it, and it kept the foaming down. Okay, now that doesn't sound like a super big deal, but sometimes that foaming could cause problems with the engines. But by adding the detergent, that cut it out. However, there was a trade-off. They found with some engines that the detergent broke down seals on those engines, so you were wearing out seals and replacing gaskets and things like that a lot sooner. So engine tech had to get a little bit better. Now today we wouldn't really talk about that, but back in Project Spirit's time, that would have been an actual debate. Just again, like today, we debate which is better, synthetic or conventional motor oil. That was an actual argument back in the day. Now, something else that has also changed over time. Back during the time of Project Spirit, we were adding zinc to motor oil. It came directly in, as a matter of fact, I can guarantee this has some zinc in it. Now, that zinc was there to bond to the parts and help with lubrication. Now, today, more modern engines don't require that. You wouldn't really want to add something like that to it. But on engines like Project Spirit, you need them. And as a matter of fact, we even found that I could actually run motor oil like Rotella for diesel engines, and believe it or not, it's already got the zinc in it, and it runs just fine. So I can actually run like a 50 whatever from Rotella, for diesel engines. Project Spirit actually runs better than with anything else, compared to anything else I get on the market. So if you find that interesting, with these old engines, you can actually run diesel motor oil, motor oil for your diesel engines. So there is some actual history for you. Now let's get over to Project Lena and talk more modern day stuff. All right, Lady Mavericks. We're now at that stage where we can begin taking a close look at Project Lena. Now, really quick, I know some of you are already sitting there saying to yourselves, hey, wait a minute, Prince Magnum, you look a little bit different in this scene. Well, that's because the original scene that I had filmed, I wasn't exactly happy with. So I decided to delete that scene and come back and refilm it. So here we are now, the new and improved scene. But anyhow, the way this all comes together now is it's now time to check Lena's oil. Now, really quick, Lena requires a 5W30 oil, and this is a type of oil that I get from a local tractor supply place called Rural King. Now, they sell oil at a reasonable price, and it's a good quality oil. A lot of times, these store brands like this are actually, it's the same oil that your name brands use, except that the only difference is it's packaged up different, and because it's not the name brand on the package, even though the contents inside are still quality, you don't pay so much because you're not exactly paying for a name brand. So this is what we use on Project Lena, and it is a conventional 5W30. Now, if you remember when we were talking about over on Project Spirit, talking about the detergent and non-detergent, today we have a whole new controversy that or a debate amongst us gearheads: conventional or synthetic. Now, there is again trade-offs, just like before we talked about with detergent and non-detergent. Today there is a trade-off with synthetics. It's just a lot of folks don't talk about those, the pluses, the pros and the cons, if you will. With conventional motor oil, you really only get about 3,000 miles out of that engine oil. Now with the, and even though they say the technology for motor oil has gotten better, and they say up to 5,000, please do not fall for that little ploy. I'm going to tell y'all, manufacturers tell you that so you end up having to replace your engines a lot sooner. 3,000 miles with conventional motor oil. Which brings us to synthetic. You do get a lot more miles out of synthetic oil. With synthetic oil, I know sometimes they'll say up to, 10,000 miles, up to, the stupid dummy light comes on your engine. 5,000 miles with synthetic. There is your, there's the difference, okay? With synthetics, you pay a little bit more, whereas the conventional, you don't pay as much. Now, here's where there's a big trade-off, and it's one that folks don't talk about. Conventional motor oil is not very harsh on your engine. Synthetic motor oils seem to like to find any possible leak on your engine and make it 1,000 times worse. So an engine that is fine, maybe it might drip, you might get a little dribble of oil. Synthetic oil will find it and it'll make it leak like a sieve. Folks don't exactly talk about that. So here's my suggestion, and it's just merely my suggestion. It's your vehicle, do what you want. But Lady Mavericks, let me simplify it. If you have an engine that's up around 200,000 miles, you might want to consider switching to conventional. Anytime before that, you're welcome to run the synthetic. But there is kind of the gist of it. Unless it's a particular more modern engine that requires a certain weight of motor oil, and it only comes in synthetic, that's just kind of where you're at. You're stuck with that, okay? Now, again, this is a 5W30 multi-grade oil. We've changed a lot again over the years. So, some of you Lady Mavericks are now saying, okay, Prince Magnum, 5W30, how do you know that that's what Lena's engine actually takes? Well, I will show you. By simply removing the cap, a lot of times car manufacturers will print right there on the cap the weight you're supposed to do. Now, if your vehicle doesn't exactly have something like that, some car companies don't do that. It'll be in the owner's manual. If that's not, if you don't have an owner's manual for your vehicle, again, do not panic. A lot of times you could go over to places like AutoZone, O'Reilly's, Advanced Auto. You can even go to some of your Walmart tire care places. You can even go to other repair shops and basically ask them to give you the tail of the tape of your vehicle, the size of the engine, the weight of the oil. Anything for your vehicle, they can look it up and get you the details of that of your vehicle. So you do have the information widely available to you. Or if you don't want to go out, we do have that fancy World Wide Web at our fingertips. A simple Google search will tell you everything you need to know about your vehicle and then some. So there is that little tidbit. That's how you'd learn. Okay? So, and there's going to be a lot of you that are going to be sitting there going, well, okay, just trust me. The information is there if you're willing to do the research. All right? So Lady Mavericks, you now got that quick tip. All right? So, moving on, we're going to go ahead and replace the cap, or if you prefer, we're going to recap, put the cap back on. And we're going to go ahead now and pull the dipstick. Now, when pulling the dipstick, the first thing that we need to do is we're going to take a paper towel, just like this. And this is a paper towel that you could get at your, at any fast food restaurant. I always keep a few on hand inside of Project Lena and Project Spirit. So if I'm out and about and I got to, check something, or I got, somebody spills something, I've got paper towels on hand. And there's another little quick tidbit for you. But we wipe the dipstick clean, and really quick, while I've got y'all here, I'm going to show you the marks that you need to use to check your engine oil. All right, the best I could show you with the camera is you'll actually see these 4 little holes right here on the end of the dipstick. Now, these 4 little holes are designed to just make oil hold on to the dipstick. This is metal, okay? Now, on Project Spirit, she didn't have anything like this because the oil was so thick it just clung to it with no problem. With more modern day oils, you kind of need these little holes for the oil to kind of hold into. But you'll kind of see right here this kind of checkered pattern. Well, that checkered pattern with a couple lines at each end is designed to tell you where it's safe. Okay, so as long as it's not above that or below that, we're okay. And you can top it off as need be. So this would be like, say like, a fourth of a quart, half, three quarters, and a full quart of oil is what you would need to get her right back up to top level. But this is still safe for, safe for Project Lena. On Project Spirit, it's going to be a little bit different. We're talking older engine as opposed to a more modern engine. All right, so now you understand the markers on your dipstick. So now that we've wiped this thing clean, the next thing that we need to do is replace it. Put it back in the engine. Now, we're going to pull the dipstick one last time, and there you go, right there. If you look, Project Lena is actually just a smidge overfull, which, I mean, the amount that she's overfull isn't going to be a big deal, but try not to make that a habit. So, from here, we go ahead and wipe the dipstick clean one last time, and then we replace it. We do not have to add oil, but if we did, we would remove the cap and put the recommended amount back in. And with those markers, that simplifies things as opposed to from the old days when we kind of had to guess just a little bit. So, there is how we check Project Lena's engine oil. As I told you in the beginning, how were you going to... There's a lot of information. It's not just dumping motor oil into your engine. Now, really quick, if we did have to top her off, we would remove the cap. You could put a funnel in, or you could not. If you're feeling ambitious, and you would just pour it in. Okay, that's simple. It really is that simple. So, now that we've done all of that, and you guys have learned a couple of cool little tricks, and you've learned a little bit about the motor oil in your engine, there's another one to the books. And the nice thing about this is we can easily just throw this away. Biodegradable, doesn't hurt a thing. Alrighty, so Lady Mavericks, I hope you all enjoyed this. I know I enjoyed bringing this content to Lady Mavericks, because I know a lot of you have said numerous times that you've learned a great deal about automotive tech from this particular series. And again, I want to thank the ladies that came forward to me initially with the idea for this series, because a lot, again, there's not a whole lot of folks building there's not a whole lot of guys building cars, and it's now the ladies now picking up the mantle of building cars today. So if it was not for our Lady Mavericks, out there, and even the ones that don't know they're Lady Mavericks yet, let's face facts, we would be hurting for, for people just doing custom cars in general. It would be left to us old guys. But that does bring us to a point where I get to mention the Patreon. The Prince Magnum channel does have Patreon. Get on over there, and for $1 a month, you become a member of the High Mileage Club. What does that entail? Well, you get a little bit more say-so than everybody else when it comes to the content here on the Prince Magnum channel. Currently, right now, we do have a couple of Patreons that donate $1 a month to the channel, and of course, all proceeds go back into the project cars, Project Lena, and of course, Project Spirit. Along with that, we do have the Teespring store. We're actually looking at possibly, at this point, adding more stuff to the Teespring store that doesn't have a certain someone's touch all over it. But beyond that scope, we're now at the stage where I get to say to all of you, get out there and work on a project. I don't care what it is, just do something with yourselves. Remember, idle hands and a creative mind go together like oil and water. If you have a sweetheart, sweep them off their feet and do something special for them today. And as always, for every last one of you out there, if no one out there has told you that they love you today, Prince Magnum does. God bless you, and have a happy 24. Thank you.
CT with an